episode, I said this.
Seven Wonders Duel, I think, is better than Seven Wonders. I think
Yes.
Splendor Duel is better than Seven Wonders.
Never played either.
Splendor Duel is 100% better than it. And I'm willing to bet that I think Tokaido Duo, I don't know if this will be the first game that I go.
I'm very
it may not be as
interested
good, but
to
it does
play-
look very interesting.
So, what I said is I don't know if Tokaido is going to... if Tokaido Duo could hold up to how much I really like Tokaido.
Yeah.
Of course, right? And that's why we're going to talk about this. So we're going to talk about Tokaido Duo because I finally got it off my shelf of shame.
Yep.
And it has now... So, Dame, if you grab that box...
Have
right
you?
there.
How many games did you play?
Me and my wife played 3 games in one night.
3?
And then
Yep.
she loved it so much. The next morning we had we made breakfast. And I was like on the weekend, Saturday morning.
Tokaido-themed pancakes.
Well, we made pancakes, and then she said, as we just finished and the kids were just cleaning up, she goes, "Get Tokaido Duo out. We need to play it again right
Oh,
now." And I was
cool.
like, "Hell yeah!" Right. So this is a great because if my wife gives the seal of approval, it instantly
You're
stays
good,
in
right?
the collection for a
Yep.
long time. Now, Tokaido, we talked about it in last week's episode, last fortnight's episode 62. Go back and check that if you want to see
The full
the full
four-player
breakdown of that,
version.
the full game. But Tokaido Duo takes so myself and Joel, we've played this game a little bit. Ralph
Yes.
and Damo haven't. But Tokaido Duo essentially takes the formula of Tokaido and turns it into a very interesting 2-player game. The way that it kind of works is that you have the island of Hokkaido, I believe is the island that we're jumping around. And the way that it works is that we want to have the most amount of victory points at the end of the game. Now, we have 3 different meeples that we are trying to use, and they will score points in different ways throughout the game. The first one is there's the trader, there's the artist, and so the merchant, the artist, and there's one more. He's the man who walks around the outside of the bed. He's like like a monk character.
Right.
But all 3 of them move in different ways. So it's the merchant, the
The
artist,
pilgrim.
There he is. That's what I'm
yeah.
thinking. So they all move around this board in different ways. So the first and foremost is on the outside of the island. There are all of these towns, and the pilgrim, he just moves along those towns, picking up different things, and that can be getting gold. It can be getting bonuses, so on and so forth. Now the pilgrim, each of these 3 characters have their own mini boards that they're trying to do to score victory points. The pilgrim primarily scores points in one big way. He has to visit gardens. He also has to visit temples. And so he scores points based on however many temples times however many gardens he went to, right? So the more of each you can go to, you get big points from him. So he's the first one. The second person that you've got is the artist. And the artist, now you'll see the island is separated into 8 areas. Now, the artist moves from area to area, and he can't move diagonally through the cities in the center of the board. And it's split into those 8 areas, and he has to go to each of those areas. And when he goes to those areas, he is trying to get adjacent to other people on the board, including your own people. That's fine.
Yeah.
And so for every person that he's adjacent to, he first of all, he paints a painting. So if I'm adjacent to 3 different characters on the board, I paint 3 paintings.
Yep.
But then to score the victory points, I then need to take those paintings to the appropriate areas to sell them to people in those areas.
And yeah, you can't really see it on camera at the moment, but in the different areas, there's different matching icons that will match some of the paintings the artist has.
There's 4 of them. So they appear, there's 4 different symbols. And so if I need to sell the moonlight symbol, I need to get to that area.
Right.
Okay?
So that is straight out of Tokaido.
Yeah,
where you have
pretty
to
much.
collect the
You-
cards to
yeah,
create the painting.
exactly right.
Okay.
And then the
so
cool
go.
thing, like the main difference with this is the symmetry between the 2 players. So the artist basically has two options with his turns. He either uncovers more paintings so he can work out where to go, or he cashes them in. But how many paintings he uncovers is directly related to how many pieces are surrounding that area on the board.
Where he lands.
Yeah, so
That's a super interesting. And then the final person you have is the merchant. And the merchant, basically what they're doing is they are getting, they're visiting these 4 center towns.
Mhm.
And every time they they get to a town, they get to look at as many tokens from a bag as that they have. And then you just can put them into your backpack. And then you have to take them to an appropriate town. These get randomized. So like, for example, this town will sell shoes for 2 coins, or this town will sell something else for 4 coins, right?
Yep.
So you need to get them to that area. So you're trying to basically get a whole bunch of the same item in so you can go and cash them in for big money. And depending on how much money you have at the end of the game, he gets these golden slabs. and you get more and more points. The way this game becomes very interesting is at the beginning of every turn, one player becomes the active player, and they get to they roll 3 dice, which relate to each of the 3 characters, and then they pick the first one. The second player picks the second one, and then you get the third one, and you get that immediately. Then you move them, rinse and repeat, switch the active player, they get a pick, and away you go.
Yeah.
And then there are a few other things that we haven't really mentioned, like, for example, there's a hot spring action, which gives you potentially a second action, which can be very powerful.
There's like bonus power-ups you can get to upgrade the pilgrim for you, or...
Yeah, so the pilgrims. And so there are things like, for example, the pilgrim has to move the exact amount of spaces that you say that he has to move.
Okay.
Right? So then there are power-ups like, hey, move the pilgrim +1, or move them maybe -1, right? So there's all these power-ups. The game plays in about 20 minutes. And I have to kind of eat my words here because I think I prefer Tokaido Duo more than I prefer Tokaido. It is stupid.
It's such a good game,
Stupid
honestly. I think the best thing that I like about this game is it's very self-balancing the entire time. So in 2 ways. One, like the general turn mechanic is, there's 3 actions we can pick. I get to pick first, then you get the second best, then I get the last leftovers. But then on your turn, you now get first pick. So if I've started streaking ahead, you can claw back, or we can go for different things, and it kind of self-balances itself as the game goes around. And the other part that it does is with the 3 different pieces. So like as we sort of mentioned, the artist will uncover tiles. It's based on if the artist is in this area, for example, and then Nee has his merchant here and his pilgrim here. Well, he's kept them too close together, so I'm going to put my artist there and get more things than I usually would. So he has to be cautious of exactly where I am at all times. And as a 2-player only game, it's very like my actions will directly influence the other player, and it's really good in that sense.
That's pretty cool. So it's very tit for tat sort of.
Yeah,
it's high 2-player game.
It's great at 2. Basically, like
Well,
it doesn't work at anything else, but
you know, I don't think it'll be great at 1. But 2,
you could try.
I'd say
you'd
2
always
would be
win.
great.
Tokaido solo coming to a store near you soon.
But so basically, you mentioned it's a roll and move. Is there any way to mitigate those, or rather, do you feel like you need to sort of like manipulate the dice at any point?
I never really felt like I needed to manipulate the dice. I did feel like there was an obvious best move.
Yep.
And I did feel like, especially there was a few times where I did have interesting choices where as the first player, I was looking at a dice going, if I take that, she is 100% taking that. Or Joel would 100% take that one next. There's no doubt about it. And so then the question then becomes, do you go the suboptimal route now, but knowing that it's going to stop them from getting their optimal?
Because it's basically a drafting mechanic essentially. So you don't like the drafting itself kind of mitigates it. So even if like I'm going to roll 3 different dice, there's 3 different moves that I can make, and if none of them are good for me, there's definitely an option that's bad for him.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of ways to get around it. And then when you're taking the second or third dice, you understand that you didn't pick first anyway. So I don't feel like there's any effect where I'm like, man, there was nothing good to do this turn.
Yeah, I'll say, look, I'm definitely keen to give this one a go because the reason why I bounced off Tokaido and I sold it was because of that situation where when you play it with 4 people, for instance, and everyone sort of groks it and says, well, why would I rush to a hotel? Yeah. Because the way Tokaido works, as the bigger box version, is that everyone's just traveling along this one linear track, and the game is broken up into chapters, and every chapter ends with everyone finishing at a hotel where the first person who gets to the hotel gets the best meal for the cheapest, and the last person there basically is forced to go there to end the chapter, and then you go again. But the goal of the game is that it's a set collection game. You're either collecting sets of different people, sets of paintings.
You never really want to go there early because you're just missing out on actions, and everything you do is points.
Exactly right. But the way it works is that if you choose to go to a hotel early, you're missing potentially a whole lot of actions.
That makes sense.
So with this one, the end game is triggered by, we said, so the 3 different characters have a different way that they get points each.
Yeah.
If any of those characters finish their points or finish their little board, the game ends immediately.
Oh, wow.
Basically. So if I can see that you're getting ahead on the merchant, it's my choice whether I want to race my artist there first or try and block your merchant by taking
that.
that.
Some in-game tension,
Yeah.
that's Knizia all over, isn't it?
I will say it is not immediate. It is end of round.
Yeah, it's
so
like,
if I
yeah, you
finish
get
it on
one
the first
more.
fight,
Yeah,
it is
that's
that
pretty
round,
cool.
but that round.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
I will say, when it comes to do you feel like you need dice mitigation, the answer to that question was actually no. Because what ended up happening a lot of times, especially with the Pilgrim on the outside of the board, was there was a space that we're specifically looking for, which is the water spaces, which get you the bonuses.
Mhm.
And to be clear, you can steal the bonuses off your opponent. So if they get it
Yes.
first, you can go, no, actually, I would like that power instead. I'm going to take it from you, so now I can have it. And there were times where I could see Georgie was literally, and when we were playing it, was 2 spaces away, and the Pilgrim comes out, and there's a 2 there. And I'm sitting there going, if I don't take that, she's going to get the bonus. But if I don't, but that means that I have to take it, and it puts me on a spot that I don't necessarily want to be on, right?
Yeah.
So the choices actually become super interesting because, as Joel said, if you see that you think you can actually see what the point, there's no hidden points here in this game. Like, it's all open information. You can see I'm winning. I think I've got enough points here.
It's very clear what the standings are.
Yeah, you can be
Nice.
pretty clear. But that meant that if I know that I'm 2 away from rushing the merchant, I can now put Georgie or Joel or whoever my opponent is under pressure and go, if you don't stop me from taking a merchant, I'm going to end this game and you're just not going to. So it's now up to you. So there's actually a lot of really interesting decisions you have to make in this game. It plays in 20 minutes.
Do you ever feel like, oh,
The-
I want to do all these things, but the dice are saying,
Yes.
no, I can't?
100%. There was a lot of times where I'm
That's
like,
pretty
I
cool.
really need to start getting some points on my artist.
It's
And
funny.
I don't really want to take my artist because if I take the Pilgrim again, then I'm going to be getting 6 points, and I
Yeah.
put myself 1 stop closer to the inn to
okay.
get the second action token.
Yeah, like for a game that you would think, because the main mechanic is rolling dice and then seeing what happens, you'd think that it feels fairly luck based. But I don't know in your experience, but when I was playing, it felt like my decisions were making more impact than what the dice came up as.
That's good.
There were a couple of moments where you're like, that was the best roll I could have hoped for.
For sure.
There were a few of those moments, but again, because you're only rolling 3 dice, it's very clear of like, okay, this is the best one, I think, and now I have to make it. So
I really like that in a board game where you're trying to make the best out of the situation that's in front of you. I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
What
and-
would you say the age limit is for this, like to introduce someone to it? Because it
So-
sounds quite like a complex point salad type game to me.
It's not actually that complex. To the only complexity would come into understanding how many points you actually have.
Okay.
In terms of actually moving around, look, I would be saying, if you were to ask me, should I be playing Tokaido or Tokaido Duo first for a younger kid, I'd play Tokaido first.
Yeah, Tokaido.
You play Tokaido first because that is literally as simple as move along the track, do the thing. Whereas this one has a few more interesting decisions of, I can move around the board. I mean, Joel, that's what I think, but I think we'd be pretty... What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so too. There's definitely more happening here, and you have to pay attention to the other person a bit more as well. And yeah, I'd say definitely standard
So
Tokaido
this is
is
a
the simpler one.
crunchy, thinky game.
Not
No.
too crunchy. It's much more lighter than you would think. It
Okay.
sounds crunchy from
Maybe I'm just hungry.
Yeah, well, it's not heavy.
Like-
It's just
like
that
what-
it actually just provides some interesting choices, and you've just got 3 different ways to go about it.
Yeah,
Like
cool.
waiting, I'd think like a 2-ish.
The merchant, for example, is like there's some interesting decisions of like, well, the towns in the south allow me to draw 4 tokens from the bag, whereas the towns in the north only allow me 2. But if I go to the north, that puts me further. If I go to the south, that puts me further away from the place that I want to sell it, because all the places that I want to sell are in the north.
And
right?
I don't know if you agree with me on this, but what I actually think it does really well is the rules and the iconography in this is just the right amount.
Yeah.
The rules are so simple. Well, like they're a little complicated, but the way that they explain it is very straightforward. And the
Good
board,
examples too.
yeah, if I had to describe it, I would say it's simply beautiful. As in, it looks really nice and it's eye-catching, but it's all with purpose. The colors are nice and easily distinct. You're not really getting icons mixed up.
So if you're looking here, the areas, the yellow track, that's the 8 areas are broken up by the track that the merchant goes on. He's on the yellow stuff, so he follows all the yellow lines, and then you've got the outside of the board, and then you've got the area. So it's all quite interesting. This one again is one that I bought because I saw it and I go, this looks super interesting, and I've played it and I've gone, this is actually super good. I do, as we said, would recommend for a younger person, play Tokaido first.
Yeah, cool.
But if you, again, this is taking, what I really like what they do is that designers take the game, boil it down to its core concepts and go, how can we make this an interesting thing for 2 players to fight against each other?
They also sound like how do we make this a better game? By the
Sometimes,
as well.
Well, I mean, you wouldn't want to take a game that's beloved and make a worse game, I guess. So
No, you probably don't.
I mean, they're pretty much. I mean, they're bang on. Splendid Duel has been good. Tokaido Duo is great. So
I'm very interested one day to try Cosmic Encounter Duel.
Yeah, I've seen
that one's on my radar too.
Yeah.
But yeah, this game sounds fantastic.
I was just trying to have a look. That's why I had my phone out, and I was trying to find out who the designer was, and because I said this sounds like either an Anton or Bruno game.
It's Anton Borza.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why
we should have a thing where you try and you try
so-
and guess the designer.
Yeah.
Well, and speaking of Antoine Bozza, we are going to jump